It's always unfortunate when we see someone fall from grace, especially when this person was once the pride and joy of an entire organization. To see the transformation from one of the most decorated warriors to one of the most fearsome villains of the wider spectrum of RPG games, let alone his own universe, is always down to the storytelling and the execution of the event, and I think very little had as much of an effect on me as this one. Not many of you know that I'm not as familiar with Final Fantasy VII and that my main experience pretty much started from Remake, but I have always heard praise from fans of the epic tale that Final Fantasy VII has told, so I had to see it for myself. Of course, I know who Sephiroth is, but until playing Remake and going further into the story, I knew very little of him. I know for a fact that Kenny Omega's a big fan of him, and if you don't know who he is, he's a very popular wrestler who pretty much embraces Japanese culture, which I respect. I am a wrestling fan myself, and when I saw that he hosted the live stream for Rebirth, I was pretty excited. Honestly, I always get excited when two things that I am a fan of but are different from each other has small connections like these, and it's always a fun time. Anyway, getting that little rant out of the way, and going back into the topic, we will be exploring the very pivotal event that took place before the events of Final Fantasy VII. Many of us are probably very familiar with this event, especially if you have played the demo for Rebirth, as it recalls the particular tale, but it had more of an effect on just Sephiroth. However, in this video, I am going to explore this event from a single point of view, and that is Sephiroth's. And of course, I should state here before I begin that this will contain spoilers, and I will only go through it from Cloud's recollection when the party are at Calm. I am sure we will revisit this scenario from a different point of view in the future. So, without further ado, let us sit back, relax, and enjoy as we recall the effect of the Nibelheim Incident had on Sephiroth. This event takes place 5 years before the events of Final Fantasy VII. Cloud is sent on a mission to check out the reactor in Nibelheim, along with Sephiroth and a couple of other soldiers. It is clear how excited Cloud is on this mission, as he wants to prove himself to be a very capable warrior and gain Sephiroth's approval, who simply scoffs at Cloud's aspirations. Along the way, the group stops at Nibelheim as they await for the next day for Sephiroth's hired guide to take them through the mountains. Through Cloud's recollection, he spends time catching up with Nibelheim's residents as he grew up there, but left to pursue life as a soldier. He spends time with his mom and even a bit of time in Tifa's house, and her room, and her piano, and the closet. Anyway, after resting in the inn for the night and ready to go, he comes across Sephiroth, who is staring at the direction of the mountains. It's clear that something is on his mind. Something I want to note is the difference in how Sephiroth is portrayed between Rebirth and the original Final Fantasy VII. When we see his interactions with soldiers in Cloud, he is much more sympathetic and kind, saving them at certain points and even allowing Cloud to take some time off to see his parents and explore his hometown, as he states that he has never had a hometown of his own, or a family for that matter. He only knows his mother's name as Jenova, whilst in the original, he was mostly indifferent about Cloud and the guards and was more reserved in character. The next day arrives and the party are prepared to leave, with Sephiroth assigning Tifa to be their guide, much to Cloud's surprise, and to her father's refusal to let her go. Regardless, the party are off to the reactor. This journey is pretty much the demo version of Rebirth, as we are introduced to the new UI of the game, plus allowing us to play around with the combat system in Rebirth, which is more or less similar to the one in Remake, albeit with some added features. When the party arrives in the reactor, they find a chamber of pods where monsters are being kept. While Sephiroth instructs Cloud to seal the valve in the chamber, he approaches a pod located at the center, which is labeled Jenova. He eventually realizes that this being is his mother, and this is where his slow descent into madness begins. Of course, we know this is the turning point of Sephiroth becoming one of the most iconic villains in the entire series, let alone his own game. But we can't ignore the significance of this character change. It was at this event that Sephiroth shows his obsession with finding out more about his mother and his origins that he spends nights in the basement of the old Shinra mansion in Nibelheim, learning about where he came from. From these readings, he discovers the experiments of Professor Hojo using Jenova cells to inject subjects to create very powerful beings falsely believed to be ancient, despite Jenova not belonging to that race of humans. Combining these discoveries, the fact that Sephiroth never knew about his family growing up, and having extraordinary abilities, he went on a rampage, desired to reunite with his mother, and grew hatred for humanity due to the experiments done resulting in his birth. In addition, his obsession caused the destruction of Nibelheim that night, as he slaughtered many who stood in his way, even wounding Tifa, who sought to avenge the death of her father, and nearly died because of it. Personally, I liked how Sephiroth was made to be more envious of the fact that Cloud had a family while he knew nothing of his own, which made this dark turn much more menacing, because we saw that it had a direct impact on him. And when he finally knew of his origins and who his mother was, he wanted nothing more than to be with it. Interestingly enough, another difference Rebirth made with this portrayal in the incident was his willingness to help his allies, even if they were merely soldiers, while he seemed indifferent during the original game. These small acts that make the picture in our heads of him being a more sympathetic and envious person suddenly turned into the most iconic villain in the entire series always makes me appreciate looking at these little details to help us learn more about the person and makes us connect with them more. And that makes it even more heartbreaking when they suddenly turn. Anyway, that's enough praise, and that about does it for the effects of the Nibelheim incident had on Sephiroth. Of course, this will be an event that we will be going back to as we will be covering it from the eyes of other characters, but this should suffice for the time being. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment on what other topics you'd like me to cover, and subscribe to the channel if you wish to see more content. Other than that, this is Enzo signing out, and I will see you all in the next lore video.